Hi YouTube. Okay, so today I want to make a short video on bearded dragons. I myself have two bearded dragons. One's name's Aragon and one's name's Nemoi. And thanks to a slight emergency, I have decided to make this video. I feel that there are people, including myself up until this point, who think they know more about bearded dragons than they do. So for the beginners out there, I want to go ahead and make this video. Alright, so first off, a lot of people are housing their bearded dragons in the wrong size enclosures. I've seen videos where somebody has their baby bearded dragon, if it's a hatchling, in a size 10 gallon tank, which, don't get me wrong, is fine for a hatchling, but there are some people who actually have older bearded dragons, as far as much as a couple months old inside of a 10-gallon tank. Now that's just not appropriate. Okay, so what size tank should your bearded dragon be in? Well, a bearded dragon, up until it is about 12 inches long, can be in a 20-gallon terrarium. Now, you can put babies in 20-gallon enclosure as well. So there's really no reason to start off with a 10. But at which point, when the baby becomes at least 12 inches, you really should think about upgrading the bearded dragon from a 20-gallon enclosure to a 14 or 50 to a 40 or 50-gallon enclosure. You can start your bearded dragon off in a 40 or 50-gallon enclosure if you wanted to. You just gotta make sure that the tank isn't as empty. With an adult bearded dragon, you could have bare minimum of anything in the enclosure, and the bearded dragon would be pretty much happy, other than, of course, the food bowl, water bowl, all the essentials. But with babies, if you have a baby in a 50-gallon enclosure, you got to make sure there's less floor space, I guess I would say, for the bearded dragon to, because then it will feel like it's too big of an enclosure, and it could kind of stress it out, which is why they recommend baby bearded dragons be in smaller enclosures. Next to lighting. The bearded dragons would need two different types of lights, the basking bulb and the UVB light. The basking bulb, of course, is what's going to keep your temperature at the proper level in your tank. The UVB is what will help bring out your bearded dragon, if you have a different type more for coloration, bring it out beautifully, and it will help it shed, helps it digest their food, all that good stuff. Which the lighting brings us straight into the next section of the heating and humidity. The cool side of the tank should be between 80 and 90 degrees. The warm side between 95 and 100 degrees. But that basking spot, that spot where your bearded dragon's always going to be at, under that heat lamp, should be between 100 and 110 degrees. The humidity level, however, where you have tropical animals that need to be in high humidity tanks, a bearded dragon is from the desert. Oh, excuse me. A bearded dragon is from the desert, so its enclosure needs to be at a low humidity, and that humidity level should be anywhere between 10 to 25%, but no higher than 30. I know people like to put the water bowls in their tank, and this is all fine as long as you're keeping track of where the humidity is. And yeah, a water bowl in the tank could cause the humidity to go up. So if you want a healthy dragon, you need to make sure the humidity stays between 10 and 30%, because if it gets any higher than that, there's a high risk of your bearded dragon getting an upper respiratory infection. At which point you'd have to take your bearded dragon to the vet and antibiotics and all that. So substrate. And substrate's what goes on the bottom of your tank. I personally prefer to use newspaper, but there are other options. You can use paper towels, floor towels for like your bathroom or kitchen floor. Repti carpet. Problem with Repti carpet is it holds a odor to it after a while. You can, but never ever use any kind of Repti sand or any other substrate like that, because it can lead to impaction. And when you have a bearded dragon like I do, who is an aggressive eater, especially when he's eating bugs, if anything hits his floor, which is why I use newspaper, and he goes after it, it could lead to impaction. Impaction is like constipation, pretty much, for bearded dragons. So sand or any fine substrate is not best for bearded dragons. Okay, so which once again is why I recommend newspapers, paper towels, floor towels, Repti carpet, something along those lines. If you have a wooden enclosure, I know some people don't even use any sort of substrate, they just use the bottom of the enclosure. Personally, I don't see a problem with that if you have a wooden enclosure, but if you have a glass enclosure, like Aragon's tank, he has a regular terrarium. They can't get very good traction with a terrarium because it's glass, so it's best to use some sort of substrate. And you can get paper towels and newspapers pretty cheap. In some cities, they even have free newspaper stands, so that's always helpful. For the decor. Now, the decor is anything you put inside the tank, really. You can use your you can decorate the terrarium however you feel, however you want. Just remember to place a basking spot and a hiding spot in the tank. Bearded dragons also like to climb, but remember, baby bearded dragons can be hurt easily if they fall. So keep that in mind when placing and picking out your decor and placing it throughout the terrarium. Bearded dragons do like to climb, so keep that in mind when picking out your decor as well. And the reason I say bearded dragons can get hurt easily, baby bearded dragons can get hurt easily, is my female bearded dragon, Nemoe. She recently fell off her basking spot, and well, I recently had to make a recovery aquarium for her, something that is a little less high and has less stuff in it. Really, it really has nothing in it except a substrate, something for her to lay on, and her food bowl and a thermometer. So really, it's completely empty. Just to keep her from using her leg too much. But she recently fell off her climb log, and hurt her leg. So that's just something to keep in mind. Food. Now, I got a couple listed here that is great. And I'll even tell you what my bearded dragon's like. But I also have a website for you that you guys can look at. It will have all the pros, cons, and all that of each food. And it will tell you the nutritional value of everything. But here are a couple staples you can think of. And a staple is just, the main foods you feed them. An everyday food. Okay, you can feed them alfalfa, the plant, not the sprouts. Though you can feed them the sprouts, but not every day. Cactus pears, also known as prickly pears. They're great. My bearded dragons especially like, they're called bites, prickly pear cactus pear bearded dragon food. And that's just a moist bite dragon food. You can buy it at PetSmart. They also like collard greens. My bearded dragons love collard greens, actually. Bearded dragons also like dandelion greens. I haven't tried mine on it yet. They also like mustard greens. Once again, haven't tried mine on it. Bearded dragons, including mine, love phoenix worms. But mine are very picky. If the phoenix worms aren't moving, if they're cold or whatever and they're not moving around, my bearded dragons won't eat them. They think they're dead. Another good staple is turnip greens. I also have not tried these on my dragons, but I do hear that bearded dragons like them. Dubia roaches, once again, I hear bearded dragons like them. I've seen several good videos on it, but I've never tried mine. Crickets. Mine ate them when they were at the pet store. I haven't really gotten around to getting any crickets. My bearded dragons, however, do love superworms. And they also like darkling beetles. Some questionable foods that may or may not be good for bearded dragons. Beef grounded up, like ground beef, low fat. Nobody's sure about that. White bread. I personally wouldn't feed my bearded dragons bread. Bread in itself is a type of, it turns to sugar, which turns to fat, so I wouldn't really feed it to my bearded dragons. Whole wheat bread. Once again, it's a type of bread. I wouldn't feed it to my dragons. Cheerios. I don't see why I would. I mean, I grind it up and use it as substrate sometimes for my mealworms because they like to eat it. So I do feed it to my mealworms. I mean, my superworms, but I don't see any reason to feed it to the dragons, but it is in the questionable section. So remember, everything in this section says that we're not sure what it does to dragons. Chicken, cooked. I personally, it is a type of protein, don't see a problem with it. I haven't tried it on my dragons. I was going to until I saw it was on the questionable list. Chives. I don't really give my dragons hardly any type of seasonings. So, I can understand why this is on there. Eggplants. Once again, I don't eat eggplant, so I don't see why I would give it to them. Garlic. I like garlic, but I wouldn't give it to my bearded dragons. Food you should never feed your bearded dragons. Avocados. Avocados are poisonous to your bearded dragons. Wheat bran. It's a substrate that is used to feed superworms and mealworms and all those other worms. You're not supposed to feed that to them. Also on there, it said onions are on the questionable list, but it also said could be poisonous. So that tells you something. Okay, now there is a larger list, and it's on www.beautifuldragons.com. Again, it's www.beautifuldragons.com. One more time since I messed it up. www.beautifuldragons.com. www.beautifuldragons.com. Okay, next is water. Now, yes, bearded dragons come from the desert. I guess people don't think they have a lot of water in the desert. It's true, they don't. But there are places where bearded dragons can find water. And here are a couple ways bearded dragons actually do get water. They go out early morning when it's still moist out from the dew, and the dew will land on their skin. And it will soak up in their skin, or they will drink it off their skin. So they can get it through their skin, and they also drink it. And the other way they get it is through the fruits, vegetables, and bugs that they eat. So, yeah, there may not be much fluids in the desert, but if you cut open a prickly pear and squeeze it, you're going to get tons of fluid. And same thing with other cactus plants. And if you crush up some bugs, they are full of fluids. Maybe not anything I would drink, but they're full of fluids. Okay. Housing with or without other bearded dragons. Okay. First off, bearded dragons can get along with others. This is true. But bearded dragons are solitary animals by nature, okay? So when you put two bearded dragons in a tank together, there is a high risk, and I do mean a high risk, of your bearded dragons fighting. My two bearded dragons got along just fine for the past month and a half. And out of nowhere, I see them starting to try to show dominance and biting each other and things like that. So, once again, not only was it the injury to Nemoe's leg that made me have to separate them, it was also the fact that they've been showing each other that one's dominant over the other and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure they're both the same gender, so it's not because of different genders, and I'm pretty sure they're both girls, so it's not because they're both boys. So, here's the thing. Yes, you can house two bearded dragons together. Should you? No. A lot of people will say it's perfectly fine if they were together from birth. This isn't true. Even baby bearded dragons can start getting dominant over another one. Now, my bearded dragons are only about 4 months old, and they've already started showing each other dominance. So, best thing to do, if you're gonna get two bearded dragons, house them separately. If you want to give them time to play together, this is perfectly fine. But once you house them separately, unless you're breeding them, do not put them in each other's tank. Get a different playing enclosure so neither one's like, okay, well, this is just mine. This is just like all animals. Once an animal sees that tank is theirs, or that cage is theirs, or whatever, they become territorial. And bearded dragons are no different. So, just small word of advice. Do not house bearded dragons together. There is a risk of fighting. If that's a risk you're willing to take, then that's okay. I cannot tell you what to do with your animals. I can only give you my advice. There have been plenty of animals injured or even dying from fighting with another bearded dragon. So even if they seem like they get along just fine, in a short period of time, they could start dominating each other and fighting. And nobody wants to come home to a bearded dragon that has passed away due to a fight. So that's me ranting a little bit about housing them together. So I'm going to get off the topic, but so that's just a little video on bearded dragons. I did not get a chance to show you guys my bearded dragons in this video, but maybe next time. So I gave you a lot of good tips. And if you have any questions or anything, you can always message me on here. Also, there's a couple other good people who do videos on here. Personally, my favorites are Weeby Reptiles. Michael really knows what he's talking about when it comes to bearded dragons. He does breed them. LLL Reptiles. They're really great. They also breed and sell reptiles along with everything you need to set up tanks. Dave's Fine Geckos. He's really great. I think he mostly focuses on geckos though, but he does have a couple bearded dragon videos. Oh, also, if you want to make your own backgrounds or hides or anything like that, check out Lizard's Landscape. He also has videos here on YouTube. So go ahead, give it a check. And yeah, check out Weeby Reptiles. Michael's awesome, and he'll take real good care of you when he starts breeding again. Alright, see ya.